Welcome to our recent interview with a medical cannabis research assistant and a patient. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, don't be nervous. You ready to get started?
Yes.
All right, cool.
All right.
Well, today we have a very special guest for a number of reasons. I'd like to introduce, let me have you introduce yourself.
All right. So my name is Tiphanie Chanel. I am currently a student at UNM and I do some medical cannabis research with Dr. V.
Sure, yeah. So we actually are taking a class together. Well, I'm the professor and you're the student, but I'm also teaching the cannabis class that you're not a part of, which is really interesting. This is one of the first times that I've taught that bigger class. The class that you're involved in is research methods, which are obviously really important for society to understand how scientific findings come to be and some of the limitations of some of the information that we hear and so forth. And obviously these are of tremendous concern and interest to people that are considering experimenting with medical cannabis. So you have a very interesting and powerful story that I think a lot of people would like to learn about and can maybe instill a little bit of confidence in the types of decisions that they might be considering in similar circumstances. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Yes, of course. So I first started having seizures when I was 17 years old. They went undiagnosed for a long period of time. I was told everything from I had a vasovagal syndrome, which is, I guess, a easy fainting reflex, to I had low blood pressure, to just a variety of different answers. None of them which helped, of course, with the seizures. I don't have them all of the time. I only have grand mals every couple of years, but it was concerning enough to me that I kept looking for answers. And so I finally got diagnosed at the age of 32 with epilepsy. So 15 years later. So during that time, I was trying to learn what was going on with me. I didn't really know for sure. I had a feeling that it was epilepsy, but without doctors telling me or having any of the tests to prove it, I didn't really know. So I just kept going about my normal life. I am a cannabis user, and I have used cannabis ever since I was a teenager. And when I first started using, I noticed it didn't make me funny and goofy and stuff like it did my friends. It just made me feel normal.
Okay.
And so I fought with it for a long time because I grew up in Texas. Cannabis is not legal there and it's very shamed and looked down upon. So I fought with it for a long period of time that I was a pothead and, maybe that's all I was. And I went to school. I graduated from, of course, high school. I graduated with my associates and my bachelor's, all with honors, all by smoking pot as well. But I still fought with that complex of, am I just a pothead? Is there something wrong with me? Stuff like that. And now that I have learned about the epilepsy and stuff, I've started using cannabis as treatment. I had stopped cannabis for a period of time. I was teaching. So once I moved to New Mexico and had access to it, I started using it again. The doctor prescribed it to me to help with the side effects from the anti-epileptic medicine.
Okay.
And then eventually I took it a few steps farther and have weaned myself off of the medicine and have been using just cannabis only. But going back, so since I've moved here, I've realized maybe I'm not just a pothead. I've been using pot because it's helped me.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. All right, so you have a lot of different types of experience using cannabis. You brought up a lot of issues with regard to the stigma that I have faced my whole life as well. And, I've never really contradicted its role in my life. And I've just kind of brushed away the stigma, but it still exists and it creates barriers in life and it creates distance between individuals and so forth. So it still has that impact, even if you are relatively protected from, instilling that sense of shame, I guess, that society has put on us for using cannabis. So you have managed to completely come off of conventional epileptic medications.
Yes.
And why did you decide to come off of those entirely?
So at first I thought they were wonderful because they did take control of the seizures and I wasn't having them no more. And in that aspect, they were great. However, they came with really bad side effects.
Okay.
I had memory loss. I struggled in school keeping my grades up. I've always been an honor student. And so when I was getting C grades, it was a big concern to me. I had extreme weight loss, and come to find out one of the side effects is that it causes anorexia. And I had noticed I didn't have an appetite and I never ate. And it wasn't that I didn't really want to or that I was forcing myself not to eat. It's just I didn't have appetite. And so that caused weight loss. I had really bad nightmares. And I would wake up with like night terrors and sweats and shaking and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you said that at first you thought they were really great forms of medication or therapy.
Yes.
And did you not experience those side effects initially, or did they get worse?
Yeah, I think they got worse. So I've always had some of the nightmares and the night terrors and stuff. I have a little bit of PTSD. So I still will occasionally have some nightmares from trauma that occurred in the past. However, they were typically, only once or twice a month, so not of great concern. And then after I was on the medicine for a long time, I noticed I was having them almost every night.
Okay.
And so it just got to the point where it was driving me crazy because I couldn't sleep, but then I was always tired. But then when I would sleep, I would have horrible nightmares and wake up. So it was just a bad deal. And then the memory loss, I didn't really notice at first. I started noticing it with little things like forgetting my mom's birthday and,
Okay.
just little things like that, forgetting where I put something. I didn't really notice it majorly until I started back to school.
Okay.
And when I started back to school, I noticed with my grades, it was a big deal.
Wow. So it sounds like another situation where it just starts to transform your basic behavioral functioning in terms of your appetite and your ability to memorize stuff, and to the point that it became intolerable, essentially.
Yes, and it also took away parts of my personality.
Sure.
And I try to explain that to people, and it's kind of hard to explain. But it made me kind of like a zombie. I was just flatline. I didn't really have a lot of emotions. However, it does have Keppra rage. Is a well-known side effect with Keppra, similar to roid rage, if you've ever dealt with someone with
Sounds
that.
scary.
So the only emotion I would ever have would be bouts of anger out of nowhere.
Wow. And I know, at least from personal experience, that cannabis tends to have a very different effect on our mood.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something interesting of how it seems to make you feel normal.
Yes.
And we hope that you appreciated this part of the interview. We also hope that it truly helps as many people as possible out there. That's what we're doing here at the Medical Cannabis Research Fund. That is, we're trying to provide objective scientific information so that you can make sound medical decisions based on the availability of the options in front of you. Likewise, we're also serving as advocates every single day for what I believe is your inherent right to be able to have access to different types of alternative medications. And they're each associated with trade-offs. But the more options we have, the better, at least in my view. As always, if you appreciate the content that we're trying to provide to you every single day, consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, or becoming a patron or even a donor to the Medical Cannabis Research Fund through the University of New Mexico. We really, really do appreciate it. Through these efforts, through all of our efforts, I do believe that we are changing the world.